What's up YouTube, Dow here from Zephyr Games, bringing you an updated profile that a lot of you have been asking for, and that is now Charmers. Now what I've done with this particular profile is I've made it with a bit of a spicy touch. I've also given it the ability to compete on a budget as well. So a lot of videos I've seen online are like, yeah, okay, first place, Charmer deck. And you watch it and then there's like, oh, by the way, we've got Dogmaticas in here. And it's like, well, I don't really want to pay £100 plus, and I'm pretty sure Lightning Deer Summons are like $90 odd each, just so I can play my Charmers when I could go and buy an Eldritch Zoo deck for that. So, what I've done here is I've actually got some incredibly powerful budget options, and all of those options synergize well with the deck to get you to your end goal. We've also got a very easy way of getting into the boss monster of Quintet as well, and there are other cards you can play that instigate this a lot easier. With that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe so you do not miss out on any more Yu-Gi-Oh content. I will explain each card I have as we go through it and why I've chosen the ratios that I have. And if you have any further questions, put them in the comments down below and I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. With that out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into today's profile for updated Charmers. Now, we've put a different engine in here to Dogmaticas. It's not really to the level of Dogmaticas, and the idea is that we're still going to be playing the Charmers. But as you can see from the title, it is something a little bit different that actually aids you on a budget option to give you interrupts and negations. And what you've got to keep in mind is you do need to be able to make cards like this during your turn, even if you're under VFD as well. So of course we start off with one of each of the Charmers. Now previously you would always play one of each of these anyway, but previously I was playing two of Asua, and I've actually cut Asua back down to one because these are actually a bit more of a brick. Now the other engine that we use as the Magistus is a normal summon engine, so you kind of need to get them to the board. Alongside with these are just your special summon fodder. So you want to be discarding these, you want to be special summoning them from hand, because you're then going to be able to revive them and use them in other ways. Everything else can then be utilised in different capacities. We then of course play Triple Fairy Tale Luna. Now this is the only card that clashes with the Magistus, purely because it does need to be normal summoned. So what you've also got to keep in mind though is it does need to be normal summoned to search you out a Charmer. But even if it is not normal summoned and it's just special summoned and left on the field, it still has the ability to be a level 4 for your level 8 synchros, your rank 4 synchros, or it does have the ability, if it maintains its effects, to quick effect return one card your opponent controls to the hand, which can be very, very useful and disruptive to them. Then for the rest of the Charmer based cards, we do play two of the Nefarious Archfiend Eater, and we do play the one Awakening of Possessed. Now, I'm not 100% set on these ratios as of yet. You could put in the water one, in my opinion, Gigabyte. And the only reason you'd put the Gigabyte in here, you could also put the fire one in here as well, is because if you did put the field spell, you would have more targets to actually utilise that particular monster. I put this at 1 purely because it is a bit of a brick. Now previously I did have the water one as well, but the idea or the combo behind this is that you're supposed to get a spellcaster plus the Nef, and then you're going to use this plus the spellcaster to get you into this. This will then revive one of the spellcasters, and then you use the effect to link it away to get the trap. So this is another way into your traps. But the issue is, if your opponent is smart enough, not only will they try and stop this effect reviving, but they'll try and stop any effect that's going to move it, especially in this current format where Skullmeister, DD Crow, and of course Ghostbelt are running around. You do need to be very, very careful on how you kind of do this. So the best thing about this is it does allow you to bring back any level 4 monster, which is again why it has synergy with the Magistus. And the reason that the Magistus are so good is it does give you a secondary engine to help instigate your board. Keep in mind, this can be special summoned by having a level 4 or lower earth monster, which is this guy here, and any other spellcaster. So you've kind of got to keep in mind that the utilities that you have accessible to you in order to get this card from the deck. Then we play Triple Parallel XZs. Now a lot of people were asking me where my Parallel XZs were in the last profile. This was something that I had added literally straight after and updated. But the reason for Parallel XZs is in the budget version, it's an incredibly powerful card, especially when we're using the Magistus, so you've got the access to a Link 1 card now as well, to pretty much try and trigger your effects in order to utilize and get everything going. So the idea is that with Parallel XZs, you're going to be able to try and build your board, put them on the board. You're either going to have rank 4 access, you're going to have additional level 4s for your synchro plays, or you're going to have the ability to go into your link climbs and link climb higher. With this deck as well, you do have the ability for Needle Fiber, Halley Firebrax plays, but again, I've left that out because I didn't want this to become a, oh, you've just chucked in access code, or oh, you've just doing Halley Firebrax plays, but I'll show you those at the end, the other options, and where you can go from there. Now, the alternate engine to Dogmatica's, and the reason I think this engine is a little bit better is it synergizes more pure with the deck itself. Now, Dogmatica's are, of course, always going to be stronger, purely for the fact that they are a meta-relevant deck. But the comparison is, you can get this entire Endymion engine I have in my hand right here for pretty much the same price as like one Ecclesia or one Palladius. Like, that's the big difference in price gap. So you play triple Zoro, the Magistus of Flames. The reason this is important is it does exactly what the Endymion Master or Magistus of Mastery, and obviously the spell to search this out, it does the exact same thing. In the sense that what it does is it can target a Magister monster it controls, equip a Magister monster from your extra deck, which will be Artemis. Artemis will then trigger to search you out Crowler. And Crowler gives you the ability to drop this down by discarding any spellcaster monster to then use a level 8 Synchro, making Savage, or a rank 4, making Bahamut Shark, which can then turn into Totally Awesome. Now, for those of you going, how do you make Totally Awesome? Well, Crowley can turn its attribute or change its attribute to any attribute you want. So the idea is that if you've got the Majesty Master or you've got your level 4 Water Charmer, you can turn this into a water, straight away make Bahamut Shark, make Toad. But what makes it so good is both of these two, the Endymion and the Zoro, are the one card that will trigger everything off. So on top of that, Zoro, when it becomes equipped, allows you to special summon a spellcaster from hand. So ultimately what Zoro can do is Zoro can trigger to special summon any spellcaster down from the hand. Their effects are negated, but which is absolutely fine. Because most of your Charmers, you don't actually mind their effects being negated, because what you're going to do is, if this was to bring down an Earth, level 4, you can then use Zoro plus the Earth level 4, bring out your Nephilim. The Nephilim will then bring back the spellcaster that Zoro brought down, or can bring back any spellcaster that was in the graveyard, even Zoro itself, and that gives you a tuner. You can then link those two off, get your trap off of the Nephilim. That will then allow you to climb higher. Not to mention that by this point you've done all of this, you would have also searched out your Crowler. So you could then discard a spellcaster, bring down Crowler, then use Zoro to link away, and that brings about the Nephilim and brings back another level 4, giving you the Nephilim plus the ability to make a rank 4 or a Synchro level 8. So the synergy between this and obviously the whole Charmer engine as well is amazing, because waters, fires, and earths, water, fires, and darks. If you wanted to, you could put in the Magistus spell card that lets you special summon any spellcaster from the hand. That will then, of course, mean that you'd want to put in the Madame Veer. And on top of that, the only reason I chose not to do that is because once you mess with that ratio, that's when it becomes a Magister with Charmer deck rather than a Charmer with Magister deck. But this engine is the minimum engine that I say you need in order to get your the instigation to make it all work. If you wanted to, you could do 2 Zoros and 2 Madame Veers, and probably even cut Crowler down to 1. And you can also play stuff like Pot of Avarice to recycle your graveyard, putting these all back into your deck and going again. Moving on to the hand traps, we've gone with the aggressive hand traps of triple Gamma and the 1 driver. Now, Gamma is a questionable one right now, but on a budget level, what you've got to be able to do is be able to play your game during your turn if you're going to get VFD'd. Now, if you get VFD'd, Gamma is one of the best ones to do it, because if your opponent tries to shotgun it early or tries to shotgun it while you don't have a monster on the board, you can hit them with Gamma, and that will really, really disrupt their plays. Not to mention, Gamma can also be used during your opponent's turn as a very, very powerful hand trap that is very difficult to disrupt or stop. And on top of that, if you do successfully resolve this during your turn, it gives you the ability to go straight into Savage or straight into Omega and rip another one from your opponent's hand. If you don't have these, or you don't want to play these, you can put in droplets as well. It does give you another option. The whole idea behind these 3 and these 3 cards here of Infinite Impermanence is that we need to be able to play the game during our opponent's turn. Now, for those of you going, well, Infinite Impermanence isn't budget, it's like, well, it's like 15 quid a card, it's on its 4th print, you should be able to get imperms. You kind of need imperms right now. If you don't have imperms, then the next budget option, or the next possible option, would be Forbidden Chalice. Because the whole idea of these particular cards is that either during the standby phase or during the main phase, you are able to either chain this to or prior to a VFD or even to a Nyam Nyam that is going to shut you out of your graveyard. So you need to be very, very defensive on those plays. Another option to this as well is Cosmic Cyclone. And for some reason I've done the traps over the spells first. But the idea behind these is purely because you need to be able to stop your opponent plays. Now, Charmers can be very, very good at control. They can also be aggressive, which is what is really nice about this combination of the two engines. However, as every deck will do, they will struggle under a VFD lock. The difference with this is you do have your other trap cards that you can set and then play during your opponent's turn to try and control them more. But you do need to be able to try and play everything you can in order to get out of a VFD lock. So that's it for the hand traps. Moving on to the spells, we play Triple Spirit Charmers. So this is another card you can actually protect with the Gamma. So if you activate this and they try to ash it, you can Gamma it. And that's very important because the Spirit Charmer is actually really important to get you what you need. So you discard one card, any card you want. Then you take two cards from your deck with different names from each other that are a Charmer monster, a Familiar Possessed monster, and or a Possessed spell or trap. You add one of them to the hand and you set the other. So the chances are, if you've got the 1850 Charmer in hand, you can probably set your Awakened of Possessed because you can activate this. Not only this will boost all of your monsters, but it'll also let you have an additional draw. Alternatively as well, you can go in for your other traps, which I'll show you in a minute. The reason Awakening of Possessed is actually really important, and you could arguably play it at 2 if you wanted to, but you do have the ability to recycle it, should it go, is that monsters you control gain 300 attack for each different attribute you control. So it doesn't include just your Charmers, it doesn't include just your Familiar Possessed, all of your monsters. So it turns all of your monsters in your extra deck into stronger boss monsters. Considering that you're playing different attributes from your Magistus and your Charmers, you could pretty much end your board with a light, dark, wind, earth, and fire, and you're boosting all of your monsters by 1500. Just imagine this guy with an additional 1500 attack. Absolutely nuts. It also includes itself as well, so it doesn't say other monsters. So monsters you control gain 300 attack for each different attribute you control. So technically, as soon as you put down a Charmer which is 1850 and you have this in play, its base attack goes up from 1850 to 2150, and that is enough to smash over a Zexal during your opponent's turn. So again, during your turn. So it does give you a lot to play around with. We've then got double Cosmic Cyclone. Now this can be like a DD Crow, this can be anything, but the reason I've gone with Cosmic Cyclone is when you look at the most powerful decks right now in the form of less so Drytron, even though they are powerful, but more so looking at like Zoo Eldritch and Virtual World. Virtual World Trap can be very, very painful. So if you're going first, setting a Cosmic Cyclone and hitting their trap card when they try to activate it actually derails their entire plays, because then it means they have to eat up their normal summon, and then it means all they can do is target the monster to special summon the other monsters, which means they can't add another monster, which is incredibly powerful and very, very important. On top of that, during your opponent's turn, if you were to imperm, or you were to try and turn off the VFD, and they wanted to chain their trap card to pop their VFD so the VFD effect goes through, if you then chain a Cosmic Cyclone and take that out, they then can't resolve that chain and you're able to continue to play through your turn. We then finish off with the one Magicalized Fusion. Now this obviously instigates your quintet, because you are going to be putting so many spellcasters with different names in your graveyard. You've got all of the Charmers that, yes, sometimes you want to revive, but you also have the little Nephilims or the little Familiar Possessed. You also have all of your Magister monsters as well. So you're going to fill that up very, very quickly, very, very easily. And being able to create a Quintet Magician that if it's using 5 different spellcasters with different names, you destroy all cards your opponent controls. Then this face-up card in the field can't be tributed nor used as fusion material, and it can't be destroyed by card effects. So you've got a very nice, powerful boss monster of a base 45, not to mention whatever you add it off with Awakening Possessed as well. Magicalized Fusion will also instigate into another card that I'll show you once we get to it as well. Then for the trap cards, we've got Triple Crackdown. Again, this is purely for those times where you can't out the VFD. You need to set your cards. It's a budget option as well. And if you crack down the right card, it can really disrupt your opponent. So you look at Virtual World. If you were to crack down their Virtual World monster, then they falter. If you were to crack down the Zodiac monster, they will then falter. If you let your opponent go all the way up to just before Dryden, and then you crack down and take it, or if they go Borbo trying to attack directly, you take it, they're not going to be able to deal damage. They're then not going to be able to make Zeus. Crackdown can then be very, very important, because then you use that monster you've just taken. Not only will it 9 times out of 10 be a different attribute, but it's also very easy fodder that can help you link climb. Not to mention that you can skip some of your link climb capabilities just by going Crackdown on a link 2, taking control of it, and that ends it there. Finish off, we've got 2 Possessed Partnership, love this card, and the 1 Unpossessed. Now, the Possessed Partnership, again, is incredibly powerful. So you special summon 1 Spellcaster monster with 1500 defense from your hand or graveyard in attack position, or face down defense position. Now, keep it in mind, it just has to have exactly 1500 defense. Guess what Zoro has, ladies and gentlemen? That's right, 1500 defense. You can summon back Zoro should you want to, which is beautiful because Zoro can 9 times out of 10 be in the graveyard. You will then be able to loop it around and bring it back should you need to. Now, I'm just trying to check the stats of Madame Veer. No, Madame Veer's 18. So then off the back of this as well, not only can you bring back your Charmers, but you can also bring back your Zoro, and its effect is generic in the sense that if you control monsters with 2 or more different attributes, so as long as they're different attributes, don't even need to be Charmers or Familiar Possessed, you then get to target 1 card on the field and destroy it. Don't even target, sorry, you can just destroy it 1 face-up card on the field. You get to banish this card from the graveyard, target a possessed continuous spell or trap card in your graveyard and place it face-up on the face-up on the field. So that's how you can recycle your Awakening of Possessed and your Unpossessed as well. Your Unpossessed, the reason we've cut this down to 1 is because Charmer monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle. And if a Familiar Possessed monster you control attacks an opponent's monster, it gains 800 attack. So it's very specific on what it's giving the attack boost for. If a monster or monsters you control is destroyed by a battle or card effect while this card is already face up in your spell and trap card zone, you get to special summon 1 spellcaster monster with 1500 defense from your deck whose attribute is different from at least one of the destroyed monsters on the field. In attack position or face down defense position. Again, this gives you the ability to get Zoro. It also gives you the ability to get any of the other Charmers. So as long as the Fire Charmer isn't destroyed, you get out Zoro. If any of the other Charmers are destroyed, you can bring out anything else. But the idea with Zoro is, again, it's another very powerful and instigate card that if it survives and stays on the field, you can then utilize it next turn without using up a normal summon. So that's it for the main deck. Now let's move on to the extra deck. So the extra deck. Okay, we start off with our fusion monsters. Now the 2 fusion monsters we're playing are of course going to be the 1 Avarice, the Magistus Spell Spirit, and the 1 Quintet. Quintet is your budget boss monster. Now obviously if you have access code, if you have anything like that, then you can put that in and you don't even need to worry about this. But with Magicalized Fusion, you can actually access both of these. If you do put the Madame Veer in, you will have the ability to search out the Magistus Invocation. But again, the reason this is so good is not only is it a wind attribute, but it is another form of disruption. So if you're able to pretty much pull off any of your combos for either your Magistus or your Charmers, and as long as it involves a Magistus monster, and you get Magicalized Fusion, you have the ability to make either of those. So you've got your offensive option and your defensive option. So this one is, during the main phase quick effect, you can target 1 other face-up monster on the field, equip this card to it, you control to it. If this card was equipped to an opponent's monster by this effect, you take control of the equipped monster. Also, it cannot activate its effects, and you only can use the effects once per turn. So it's a quick effect, pretty much snatch steal in a sense, which is why it's very powerful and useful. So just imagine if you go through your entire your entire combo, which off the back of the Magistus is technically like a 2-card combo. You still have 3 more cards to play with. If out of those 3 cards, one of them, let's say, was the way to get to Familiar Possessed Trap card, and one was to get to a Magicalized Fusion, you can end your board on a Toad, plus a Shark, or a Savage Dragon, or both, plus this. And then you've got 3 forms of disruption. You've got 2 negations, 1 form of disruption, not to mention if you've got the Possessed Trap card as well, you've got another form of disruption. So very important cards that really utilize the deck and give you a couple of different varied options. Then we've got a rank 4 engine. Now the rank 4 engine could be pretty much anything you want, but I've gone with the 3 most important ones right now in my opinion purely, is Abyss Dweller, shutting off the graveyard, hurts Drytrons, hurts Dinos, can also hurt Eldritch as well, so very important on that one, and can hurt Wind Witch in the sense that Nyam Nyam can't resolve and their spells and traps can't resolve in the graveyard. Tornado Dragon to deal with the back row of course, Virtual Worlds and of course the Zoo Eldritch on top of that. Then, of course, we've got the Ninaru, the Magistus Glass Goddess. Now, the reason we've got this in here is because it is generic for 2 level 4 spellcasters, and it lets you add back any level 4 or higher spellcaster monster. So it allows you to recycle not only your Magisters, but it can also help you recycle your Charmers as well. It can also help you recycle the Familiar Possessed if you were to play a spellcaster type version. Again, it's quite specific. It's one of them cards you can cut out if you want to and put in any other rank 4 you want. Another card as well that you can play is Zeus. I purely, like I said, I've tried to make sure that my deck isn't like, here's a card that is worth £100 in it. You're not going to be able to, like, some of you people that want to play Charmers can't build it on a budget. For the final XYZs, of course, we've got the one Bahamut Shark and the one Toad. Very easy to make. Surprisingly very easy, because all you need to do is get so your Water Charmer plus Crowler and any spellcaster discard gets you Toad. Your Magister Endymion gets you Toad. Like, it's very, very easy to get to that, even before your 5 summons as well. Not to mention that if you have any cards that help you extend further, you can go further. Then for our Synchros, of course, we've got the one Borrelode Savage Dragon and the one Psyframe Lord Omega. Both of these come off of the Gamma package, but both of these can also come off of the back of the Zoro play as well. Then for our Link monsters, we'll start off with the Link one. Of course, we're playing the one Artemis, the Magistus Moon Maiden. Purely, you want to just equip this to a spellcaster. Now, it's very, very good in the sense that if you normal summon one of your Charmers, you can put that Charmer in the graveyard and Link summon this. Then all you need to do is special summon out like your Crowler or anything like that. This can then equip to Crowler and search you out another piece. Now, it's not ideal because you're only going to be left with that monster. But the idea is 9 times out of 10, you're just going to equip this to either your Zoro or your Endymion. And that's going to get you your search for your Crowler, just for consistency purposes. For the Link 2s, we've got the IP Masquerena, we've got the Psyframe Lord Lambda, and then of course we've got the Nightmare Phoenix. Now, again, all of these kind of come up to your personal preference in the sense that IP Masquerena can actually instigate your future plays going into Nightmare Unicorn, which is another form of disruption. It can also then trigger, of course, your Parallel 8Zs, and of course Lambda is there to not only trigger your Parallel 8Zs, but it can, again, also instigate the ability to use Gamma, regardless of if you've got a monster on in the main zone or not. Then, of course, to finish off our monsters, we've got the one Selene and we've got the one Nightmare Unicorn. Now, Selene, again, isn't a necessity purely because we're not playing Access Code. If you play Access Code, it's got something to go into. If you want to play Selene, you can, of course, play any Link 4 that requires 2 monsters. So you can go into stuff like your Zero Boros, and you can go into stuff like your Mech Knight Crusader Avramax. Now, in doing so, what Selene can actually instigate very, very well, purely because of the fact that any spellcaster it brings back, as long as you haven't used Artemis, you can make Artemis with it, and straight away that goes into your Crusader Avramax. So that can be another form of your boss monsters, but what we've tried to do is our boss monster is pretty much our Quintet. But alternatively, like I said, if you take out the Naru, you take out Quintet, that can be an Avramax, and Avramax can be just as damaging to your opponent as any other big level Link monster. Now, before I wrap this video up, I'm also going to show you the alternate options you can put into the deck should you have a bit more budget. Now, I'm talking more so the extra deck, less so the main deck. The main deck, you could put Part of Extravagance in, but in this version, we want to control our extra deck a lot more, which means we want to be able to make sure that we can play a variety of different monsters rather than 3 of 5 monsters. So your other option for your aggressive level 8s can be your Scarlight Red Dragon Archfiend. I just personally love this card as well. Now, you can play, if you really want to make it a Charmer deck, and I understand why you would, you play each of the Charmers. But to be totally honest, to compete on the high level that you need to right now, this isn't that great. So some of them might be better than others during certain matchups, but you still relies on your opponent. So you still need your opponent to have a water, a fire, an earth, a wind in the graveyard. So it's not very great going first. Your opponent then still needs to destroy it. Now, to be totally honest, they might not be so fearful destroying this. And again, if you do, more so if you destroy Heater, you do get to search out Zoro because it gives you a fire with 1500. So you've really got to keep in mind that cards like this, if you really want to compete on the highest level, are going to actually clog up the deck a little bit. Now, they are great Link 2s. If you really, really want to, you can take out the Lambda, you take out the IP Masquerena, but unless you're playing this going second, and unless the format becomes a format where you can guarantee your opponent's going to have a water, fire, earth, or wind in the graveyard. And keep in mind, the only one that's massively consistent is going to be Heater. If they've dropped an Ash Blossom on you, you're not going to be able to Link Climb into Selene. Now, once that format becomes that way, then of course you can go Heater into Selene. Speaking of going Link 2 into Selene, you can play Halley Firebrax. Now, the reason you can play Halley Firebrax is Zoro makes Halley Firebrax himself. So Zoro plus Crowler makes Halley Firebrax. Halley Firebrax can then summon out Effect Veiler, so you put Effect Veiler in there, and that can then go into Selene, and as long as you used enough spells, Selene can then bring back any of the Magisters you've used, or of course can bring back your Effect Veiler. You can then turn any of those into Artemis. That will then allow you to go straight into Mech Knight Crusader Avramax, or of course, probably the monster you're probably going to go into a little bit more would be Access Code Talker. And by doing so, Access Code would have at least, I believe it's 2 pops. Yep, 2 pops, because Artemis would be a light. But then, of course, you could put a Link Karibo in there as well and make it a dark, and then Access Code would have 3 pops and would gain 3k. So it really depends on where you want to go with that. And then, of course, you do have the Verte into Dragoon engine. Now, Verte would actually offer you more options if you were to play Quintet and if you were to play the Magistus as well, purely because you can then send Magical Eyes Fusion rather than clogging your deck down with Red Eyes, Dark Magician, and Red Eyes Fusion. But in my opinion, if I'm ever going to pay 2,000 life points for either of those fusion monsters, Dragoon is always, in my opinion, out and out going to be the best. Just because it goes, right, okay, offensively, I'm going to pop. Defensively, I'm going to discard and negate and get stronger. Whereas with the other 2 fusions, you only have 1 option. So you would probably take out both those fusions and go into this. The only risk that you do run is bumping up your bricks in the deck by putting in the Red Eyes Fusion, and the Dark Magician. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is that for an updated Charmer deck. Now, I know this video is a little bit longer, but you've got to keep in mind that the videos that I do, the reason they're longer is because I like to explain everything. I try to make it as clear cut for everyone watching. I try to make it understandable of why I've gone the routes that I have, and try and give you a bit more explanation, because sometimes even me watch a profile and you'll be like, I don't get it, why is he playing that? And then you then need to ask the question, and they might not respond to you or anything like that. Whereas if you're watching this, you should be able to go, right, okay, that's why he's playing the Magistus, because of this. That's why he's playing Quintet, because of this. So give you as many options as possible, and then it does come down to personal preference as to whether you want to go that route or whether you want to go a different route. Anyway, with that out of the way, like I said, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, smash that subscribe button so you do not miss out on any more Yu-Gi-Oh content coming up for the rest of the year, and of course moving into 2021. For now, thanks for watching. As absolutely always, guys, stay safe and happy Christmas.